this is Amreen and welcome to another video of Read a Day Club. In this one, I'm going to be dissecting the Unbearable Lightness of Being by Milan Kundera, which was the book of the month. And since I have so much to say, I'll skip the small talk. So let me explain the theme of the book through the first chapter. That sort of gives you an idea of what's to come. It's called Lightness and Weight. I'm reading from page 5. The heavier the burden, the closer our lives come to the earth, the more real and truthful they become. Conversely, the absolute absence of a burden causes man to be lighter than air, to soar into the heights, take leave of the earth and his earthly being, and become only half real. His movements as free as they are insignificant. What then shall we choose, weight or lightness? He describes this opposition between lightness and weight as the most enigmatic. But then there's no right answer to, which one is the optimistic viewpoint and which is the negative. Another equally mysterious theme in this chapter and the rest of the book is the talk about the fact that we live only once, right? So how can we compare this one life we're living right now with the past or even with the ones that are to come, if that is even a possibility? What can life be worth if the first rehearsal of life is life itself? And that's precisely the unbearable lightness of being the author has mentioned so many times in the book. There's just this one path we have that we take together as individuals, of course, each with his or her own thought processes concerning the mind, soul and body. And this one path is what we get without access to any means for comparison. And the four characters that take this one path together are Thomas, Teresa, Sabina and Franz. Franz and Teresa I found to be the heavier characters. They seem to want to attach some or the other meaning to all important things in life. Teresa especially is very emotional and she comes with a lot of baggage. And the spine of her character is revealed in the second chapter. It's called Soul and Body. Reading from page 44. Now we can better understand the meaning of Teresa's secret vice, her long looks and frequent glances in the mirror. It was a battle with her mother. It was a longing to be a body unlike other bodies, to find that the surface of her face reflected the crew of the soul charging up from below. It was not an easy task. Her soul, her sad, timid, self-effacing soul, lay concealed in the depths of her bowels and was ashamed to show itself. I've marked another excerpt on this page. I'll just read it out just for the heck of it. And if Teresa has a nervous way of moving, if her gestures lack a certain easy grace, we must not be surprised. Her mother's grand, wild and self-destructive gesture has left an indelible imprint on her. Teresa had a very toxic and complicated relationship with her mother. So she saw and disliked her own body through that lens. It's not because of vanity that she spends so much time looking at her own reflection in the mirror. She does that time and again to somehow get a peek at her own individual soul shining through those features that remind her of her mother. Even her love for and marriage with Thomas are both marred and ornamented by all that she has lived through. You should know that Thomas and even Sabina, the woman he cheats on Teresa with, these two are what you would describe as the unbearable lightness of being. They wear this lightness as a second skin. And Thomas and Sabina, their characters are sketched so profoundly in the book that it's just impossible to not view them as the unsolvable paradox. Thomas is a doctor who takes on many lovers, but why is he so obsessed with this eternal repetition of making love with so many different women? What does he look for in each of them? What attracts him to these women? When I was reading about his escapades, I just knew that there had to be some psychological or even a philosophical explanation behind all of this. And the same applies to Sabina's brazen eroticism and mischievous submission. With Thomas, the explanation goes something like this. Reading from page 192. There is always the small part that is unimaginable. When he saw a woman in her clothes, he could naturally imagine more or less what she would look like naked, his experience as a doctor supplementing his experience as a lover. But between the approximation of the idea and the precision of reality, there was a small gap of the unimaginable. And it was this hiatus that gave him no rest. And then, the pursuit of the unimaginable does not stop with the revelations of nudity. It goes much further. What is unique about the eye hides itself exactly in what is unimaginable about a person. All we are able to imagine is what makes everyone like everyone else, what people have in common. The individual I is what differs from the common stock, is what cannot be guessed at or calculated, what must be unveiled, uncovered, conquered. He even says that there are way more similarities between any two different sorts of people like Einstein and Hitler, for instance, than there are differences between them because of the incomprehensible hidden nature of this self, and that is the crux of his obsession. But with Teresa and her heavily burdened weight that symbolizes the whole meaning of existence, his relationship evolves into something that eventually characterizes the unbearable lightness of being. Now, she is well aware of his infidelities, but she somehow finds her way around them by desiring to become his alter ego. To be honest, it's a lot more complicated than it sounds. But then, as I said, their relationship, for the lack of a better word, matures. Horror is a shock, a time of utter blindness. Horror lacks every hint of beauty. All we can see is the piercing light of an unknown event awaiting us. Sadness, on the other hand, assumes we are in the know. Thomas and Teresa knew what was awaiting them. The light of horror thus lost its harshness, and the world was bathed in a gentle, bluish light that actually beautified it. Now, I haven't spoken about Franz yet. A scholar and professor, Franz has a lot in common with Teresa, in that he too is heavily burdened with this whole concept of the soul and individuality. He too cheats on his wife with Sabina, but for reasons that are not the same as those of Thomas. Now, I know how all this can sound like a drama series, but it's really not. And all you have to do to believe me is just read the third chapter, Words Misunderstood, which happens to be my favorite. In this chapter, Kundera talks about the unsolvable paradox I mentioned earlier. So, when you're reading the interactions between Franz and Sabina, you see how both are such opposing forces. Franz is someone who believes that love is the antithesis of public life. For him, it's the constant expectation of a blow. So to Franz, darkness means infinity, while Sabina views the whole refusal to see as a disagreement, the negation of what is seen. And this is just another way to look at the whole light and dark theme the author has mentioned so many times in the book. The very beginning of Genesis tells us that God created man in order to give him dominion over fish and fowl and all creatures. Of course, Genesis was written by a man, not a horse. There is no certainty that God actually did grant man dominion over other creatures. What seems more likely, in fact, is that man invented God to sanctify the dominion that he had usurped for himself over the cow and the horse. Yes, the right to kill a cow or a deer is the only thing all of mankind can agree upon, even during the bloodiest of wars. So there's a dog mentioned in the book too. In fact, not just mentioned, in fact, the author has named the final chapter of the book after him. It's called Karenina's Smile, and it happens to be the most beautiful and the most heartbreaking. And in this chapter too, you get the sense of that unsolvable paradox. Teresa's feelings for the dog bring so much more acceptance, comfort and security into her life than her love for Thomas. In fact, at one point she even says that precisely why man cannot be happy is because happiness depends on the longing for repetition. But human time runs ahead in a straight line, whereas dogs just go about doing the same things every day. One more reason why this book, through my rant, if at all, may seem like a drama series, whereas it's really not, is that all four of them don't eventually fix anything, because really there is nothing to be solved. Hence the unsolvable paradox, hence the unbearable lightness of being. Czech writer Milan Kundera has definitely addressed some very important political issues in the book, and here I'm talking about communist-controlled Czechoslovakia back in the 60s and 70s. Now, I don't want to get into any specific details here, precisely partly because I don't want to state any incorrect historical facts, and partly because my knowledge of the subject itself is very weak. So the only thing I would like to share in this regard is that the author has very successfully put across the message that suppressors, collaborators and resistors in any national framework look for means to exploit. It's just that each group uses its own method of doing so, which gives rise to even more corruption. In fact, the author left Czechoslovakia in 75, and that's because his books were banned from public libraries and he was not allowed to work or teach. So he went into exile in France and later became a French citizen. Now that's quite a heavy load to take with you wherever you go, and so it's bound to seep into your skin and what you do. Once you read the book, you come head to head with this novelist's very ambitious desire to establish an association between consciousness and the constant flux of politics. So I hope you read the book if you haven't already. Yes, Thomas is a womanizer. Yes, Teresa could be easily viewed as a toxic and a narcissistic individual, and Sabina could be sexist and whatnot. There are many red flags in the book, and I don't intend on downplaying any of them, but I still think you should read the book because the author is trying to make another point altogether, and I hope that and only that gets across in the most progressive light. Thank you so much for watching the video till the end. Please let me know your thoughts, and in fact I would love to know what you have to say about any of the characters or the overall theme of the book. So feel free to drop in your feedback, and I hope you have a nice day.